evening. Welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And I'm Mike DiLisio.
Do you all know this is the first time Mike has ever used these microphones in live?
Yeah, you know, I've looked at them and admired them from afar.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be so close to these microphones that have been close to so many other mouths is bringing up a panoply of emotions.
Remember, every microphone you use, every other person who's used that mic, how does that work?
Careful, yeah. I would.
don't know.
Dude. Just back off from
I'm
that
now
one.
a little intimidated by the mic.
I'll put it this way. That microphone was here this morning.
Oh!
You're welcome.
There's no loyalty.
No, there is. And you know how I know this?
Huh.
Lies, because I've color-coded them.
Oh.
And Z's is yellow.
You're yella. You hear what I said? Yella!
This button right here
Uh-huh.
releases this cable, yeah? And then the cable stay and the microphone go.
That would be so much work that you would not put the effort into.
Fine. It was just a joke. You have somebody else's microphone.
Deduction.
Mic on mic.
Deduction. All right, folks. We want to start out by saying thank you to some of our Kickstarter backers. First, we're going to say thank you to Sticky Ticky.
Okay.
Sticky Ticky's in the house tonight. Playing games every time
Aaron and Laurie Broomball.
Brumble's in the house tonight.
Zolt Matsyutz. Matt Linfante. Yoa Arroyo. Nat the Brat Nagan and Malte Tubner.
It's
Daniel
nice when they put the
Schaefer.
brat, because now you know you're
Nat the
pronouncing
brat.
Nat correct, right?
The Squirrel family from the Czech Republic.
The
Okay.
Squirrel family?
Kirsten from Boston. Zach Darrow. And Kip Jacobson. Thank you all.
These
Thank
names
you,
are
everybody.
So good. Thank you. So good.
fantastic.
The
Don't-
Sticky Ticky.
You keep this up, the names that we get next year are going to be so
I
off
think
the wall.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the strange names.
Right.
Except I don't love them in the rule book for a game if you're the Kickstarter backer.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
And you get to pick all capitals.
Plastered on the inside of the box lid.
Right.
Sticky Ticky.
All right, folks, welcome to the top 10. Hey, before we get started, keep in mind, Dice Tower West is happening this coming March. You want to come to Dice Tower West. It's going to be fantastic. The library is a bigger and better. We saw part of it. It was
Now,
bigger and better last time we
be
saw
careful
it.
when you say that, because the implication could be it's bigger and better than the Dice Tower East library. Is that what you're saying, Tom? Are you putting it on record right now?
It is bigger than the Dice Tower East
It
library.
is bigger.
Indeed.
It is bigger, yes.
That was
It's a great
real.
library.
That was a real
though.
half a statement.
It's a great library. Fantastic library. I will tell you that I'm not sure a game from Essen didn't make its way to the Dice Tower West library.
That is true. If you want to play some new hotness, that's
true.
where you
we
want
were
to
there.
be.
We saw them being packaged
We
and
did.
sent to Dice Tower West.
Yep.
Right.
So, yes, that's coming. And Dice Tower East registration is launching on the 18th of November, which is not far away. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting our top 10 worker placement games.
Let's talk about this, Tom.
Let's
How
talk
did
about
you arrange your top 10 worker placement games?
I arranged it by my favorite worker placement games, which is not necessarily so often when I do a top 10 list, I just go through my current top 100
Okay.
and just find that category and just pull them off.
The lazy man's answer,
Correct.
that's called. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I put a lot of work prior into this. I go through my rankings on Board Game Geek and all that. The stuff you guys don't do, I do it pre, so I'm ready. I can make a top 10 list on anything. Give me something. Give me a topic. No, don't. But,
Top 10 hats that you own.
I
You've
don't
never-
know the top
You
three.
realize he can do that.
You could, I think.
Yeah.
Top 3, maybe.
That brown one I just took off is one of them, and the white one on the bottom that you hate so much is
I hate
also
that
one of
hat
them.
so much.
Oh, the
Bottom 3.
The one
the
that looks
dirty
like,
hat.
The one that looks like it has like paint.
No, it looks like it fell in mud. I call it the dirty hat.
Okay.
Well,
Anyway.
if you only knew.
So what you're
Anyhow.
saying is the worker the worker placement part of the game is what bumped them closer to the number 1.
Sure. But I didn't pick any worker placement game where I'm like, it's an okay game, but the worker placement's amazing. These are all games I really like.
Sure.
In fact,
Yes.
many of these are in my top 100. I just didn't put, for example, I did not put Caverna or Agricola on my list. Those are worker placement games that I think are fantastic. But the worker placement part of it is fine, but it's more about the gathering of resources, that game for me.
Okay.
Well, see, that's interesting because I did a little bit of both.
I just didn't want to put 6 Rosenberg games
No,
on my list.
no. I went through my top 100, and I definitely kind of cherry-picked that. But then you came back and said you wanted to do something where the worker placement did something a little different. And so I did do that.
They don't have to be different.
I know. I'm just saying I did kind of do that a little bit. And I will tell you, I'm going to get a lot of grief right now. I'm going to get grief from both of you,
Yes.
and I'm going to get grief from all of you. Because I have a lot of very, very new games on this list.
Okay, well, first of all, what did you think you could do that wouldn't have gotten grief from us? Me and Z. We were going to give you grief no matter what you
I
put.
just want to point out
Your
that
list could be a carbon copy of mine, and I would give you grief.
you know how they say, like, if a bear is chasing you, you just got to be faster than the slowest guy?
Yeah.
I thought I was safe because Joey's in the room. That's all I'm getting at. Like, I should be exempt from any type of negative commentary because Joey is in the room.
Okay, that's fair.
So,
checkmate.
I could have just filled this with checkers and chess.
All right, let's do it then. I kind of did a combo of the two things as well.
Okay.
But yes, the worker placement part being funky is going to help the game out.
I don't know what Bruce is doing. He's trying to destroy our chat. And my birthday's in July.
It's during the Summer Spectacular usually.
Yeah. My birthday's in July, so I have
Okay.
no idea what he's doing.
I'm super confused. I'm like, wait, what did I miss?
I don't know.
Bruce, you're a jerk.
He's a menace.
Okay. Anyway, where were we?
We were talking about our top 10 worker placement games, I think.
These are all fantastic games.
Yes.
But you know what, Mike? I also have some new games on my list.
Do you?
I do.
Okay.
Am I looking at the right list? I'm not.
What?
I'm looking at top games from Essen.
I was looking at the top 10 games from 10 years ago.
Those
and you
aren't
thought
new.
those were new games?
No.
I'm so confused.
I knew that I had new games on my list, and I was looking to see how many.
And then you were
realized
like,
there was
wait, these are
none.
all about 10 years old. Got it.
There we go.
Top 10 symbols your mind is being lost as we speak.
When I shaved today, I noticed some gray hairs appearing.
Oh, welcome to my world, Tom.
I don't want to be in your world.
distinguished.
Look at Z. He looks so black.
I have a bunch of white hairs right
Yeah.
here and right here.
He does.
And in other places we can't talk about. Let's do the list.
Hey. All right, well, with that fantastic lead-in, my number 10 is one of the older games on the list, and it is by a designer who is much more popular now than they were when they put this out. This is
Reiner Knizia.
well, that would be true. He's going through.
He's at his major
He's
resurgence.
at a zenith. He is at a renaissance. No, this is Last Will by Vladimir Suki.
This is a good game.
This is a really good game. I know you prefer Prodigal's Club, but you can almost insert one or the other. They're almost the same game.
Very
I say
similar.
I prefer Prodigal's Club, but this one's just easier.
It is.
Except the mechanism of the hats in this one is not as good as the Prodigal Club.
Well,
method.
that was one of the things I was going to bring up, though, because that's basically like a turn order thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. That was one of the reasons why it's on this list, because I do like any game where there's like a
top hat
dynamic turn order system, right? And this has that for sure. And the idea, I just love the idea that you're an aristocrat and you're sending out your little errand boys, right, to do your stuff. So I wrote down a couple of things here.
Oh, here we go. He came with notes.
Look, I did. Like, so you could send them out to manipulate the market values and you can get like extensions to your player board. So these are action select. Basically, worker placement is an action selection system. Can we agree on that, right? And so I guess
as long as the action dries up by you selecting it is kind of where I put worker placement.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Or somehow changes the selection for other people. How about
that's
that?
fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Good
And
catch.
so, yeah,
Good catch.
And so this definitely has that, but also the theme helps. But it's a worker placement game where you get to kind of play with that turn order, which I like quite a bit. You get to make something that you have that other people don't
Someone
have.
doesn't know this game. What's it about?
Oh, this is like Brewster's Millions, the board game. The game where basically you start with a whole bunch of money, and the winner is the first one that can spend all their money. So you're doing ridiculous things like bringing a horse onto a yacht, and you're cooking dinner for what?
Your horse.
Your horse again.
It's all about
It's a
the
lot of
horse.
horses in the game. But you're just trying to like buy really expensive houses, trash them, and sell them for nothing, basically.
It's really funny when you accidentally make money. You're like, no.
I know, you get mad when you make money.
Right.
So it's silly but fun. There you go. Number 10, last. Will.
My number 10 is not by far, but it is the newest game on my list. It's very new. It's like a month ago new. Tops.
Whoa.
We're on the cutting edge here at the Dice
I am
Tower.
on the cutting edge on I believe the word Mike said was zenith. I don't know what it means, but it starts with a Z, and I love it.
He's saving it. Save it for your top 10 games that start with X.
You mean Z?
No, it's spelled
Zenith starts with an X.
Z. Well, it's interesting. There was a brand name Zenith that
I am
started
mixing
with
that up. You're
started
right.
with an X. They used to make electronics
Sorry. You're
back
right.
in
It
the
does start with
40s
a
and
Z.
50s.
How did I outdoubt you and your English speaking?
How did I outdoubt you? Okay, my number 10 is a game called Inori. Inori, I enjoy the idea here is the theme is pretty loosey-goosey. It's very thin, actually, and it is sort of in a fantasy world in which you're collecting colors, and the colors mean shapes, and whatever. So anyway, you're going to these spots. The worker placement spots are on cards. Mostly, except for a few on the side. You go there and you collect something. So the worker placements are constantly changing, and something like that normally intimidates me. Like I stay away from the big worker placement games like Feast for Odin or whatever, because it's like there's 87,000 worker placement spots. In this game, it doesn't bother me, and yet there's going to be a bunch of them throughout the game because they change. You flip a new card, there's new worker placement spots there. They're simple. But I really like that you couple that with an area, not even area control, it's more like a triggering of an area. And then that worker placement has levels to it. I'm going there because I'm getting something. I'm also influencing the possibility of some scoring being triggered. If a card gets completely filled, a triggering of scoring is going to happen. So I might avoid going somewhere not even based on what I would get by going there, but because I don't want that thing to score. Because you have more purple, let's say, than I do. Those things change and mutate and grow throughout the game. And yet it all boils down to these quick, simple turns where I'm just, boom, grab 2 purple, go. That's it. Oh, boom, I score my yellows. I have 6 of them. Go. I love that. I love how simple that is.
You've not played this one yet,
I
right?
have not. No.
You never will.
And I'll never play it. Based on Z's description, I couldn't be less interested in this game.
Correct.
No, it sounds interesting, and it
So-
looks beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Don't go in there expecting any theme or anything, but if you want a clever little worker placement concept at the core of it, I think you'll find it in my number 10 here in Nori.
All right, my number 10, one of the things I like about worker placement games is when the workers are different. I wish there was more games that did that, although I understand the restrictions to it. Sure. This is a newish one. It came out, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, something like that.
That's not new. Last month is new.
You're right. This is My Father's Work. And I really like this one because
This
I
is
like...
an interesting choice.
So you have 3 different types of workers. Well, 4 actually. You have your spouse, and you're the mad scientist, your spouse, and then you have servants and henchmen. I forget what they're called exactly, but that's basically what it is. Your servants go to town. Your henchmen are not allowed in town. And your servants you don't want to use on your own board because they get so overwhelmed by the experiments you're doing. You're like, don't go in that room.
Yeah.
And then you can go anywhere, and your spouse is like I was about to say an enhanced servant, then I realized where that was going.
No.
But anyway, I like this. This game is super thematic. Everything about the game is thematic. You pick a scenario when you start the game. There's 3 different ones in the box, and each one has many different endings based on what all the players do.
Yeah.
And you played this.
Yeah.
I
This
played
is interesting. It's a little long. It's my
It
one
is
beef
long,
with the
yes.
game.
It is a little long, but I found that I don't mind that. It's a good 2-player game, and it feels almost like you played a campaign in a sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there might be, like, one of the things is there's like a plague then coming, and you're like trying to invent crazy ways to stop the plague.
Yeah.
But you might fail. there's war coming, and you're creating weird inventions for the war.
I'll tell you what, I forgot this was worker placement.
Yeah, me too, because it's so story-driven.
Right. Everything else, you're collecting things,
Yeah.
and there's stories, and the people in town pull out the torches and pitchforks, and the whole thing is very immersive to the point that I forgot the mechanism for collecting things was worker placement. I thought you could just, I don't know, select stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I do like that the different people can go to different spots, and it makes sense too.
Yeah.
Like I like that the henchmen, you don't send them to town.
Right.
They're just not allowed out of your house.
They're not fit for
They're
public.
scandalous.
Yeah. This made me think about what must it be like to be married to a mad scientist? Do you have to also be mad? Or do you
No, you
think
have to be extra good.
Madly in love.
Oh.
Yeah, you're in love,
Okay.
but you're good, and you will release the hero or heroine at a critical time.
Oh, so the spouse,
so that they can escape. You're like, I love my husband, but yeah, he's gonna turn you into a Frankenstein.
Right.
Here's the key. Get out. Never come back.
Right. He's I love him dearly, but he has killed several people, and it might be best if you leave.
Yes.
Not that I don't appreciate your company. It was a lovely dinner, but he will kill you.
You will die if you're the spouse of a mad
right,
scientist.
right.
Also, you might have already died, and you're back to life already.
Okay.
Now that's
A
interesting.
reanimated spouse.
And you don't know you're the clone.
This movie writes itself.
I think that's a new movie.
Oh, my goodness. The clone I loved. Rated PG-13.
So my number 9 is, like many, probably most of the games on this list, not solely a worker placement game. It's, that's part of the stew that comes together. But I'm talking about Dune Imperium. So this is a game that,
which one?
No, I'm OG, baby. OG.
Me too.
Thank you.
Mostly because no one will teach me.
That's
the new
right.
one.
Yeah, exactly. I learned the game once. That's enough for me, thanks.
Yeah, I ain't doing this again.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah.
You ain't doing this again?
I ain't doing this
I ain't
again.
doing this again. Look, it's
Okay.
like, I understood the Fremen one time. Don't try to hit me with more Fremen. It's not going to work.
Wait, how much more chanting
brain
can one man handle?
Only has enough room for a certain...
That's in every top 10 list.
So what I think makes this one unique as a worker placement game is the fact that, again, you do have these worker placement spots, but they also are driving things like combat. You don't find that in a lot of worker placement games, so that feels unique. The way that you are kind of creating alliances feels unique to me. The fact that you can kind of go get a temporary worker, those mentats, I like that. I always like that in games where you can kind of take an action to get an extra player temporarily.
That's true.
I
That's
do kind of
cool.
like that mechanism when it's done well, and it's done well here. So this is a game that is, you could say, as much a deck building game as a worker placement game. I think it's a little heavier on worker placement than deck building, personally, at least with the OG version.
100% agree.
Yeah, so I think it stands out in the worker placement category.
Sure. And one influences the other, like you're saying. And my number 9 has a little bit of that as well, where it's a rondel game that works hand in hand with worker placement.
Okay.
And this is a little known game
called Dune Imperium. Oh, here we go.
There we go. Santiago de Cuba
Oh,
is the one I'm talking about.
Muy bien.
So this game you are collecting goods and shipping those goods. You are selecting an action by walking around. Havana is apparently a big circle.
Right.
And you can only go in one direction. You don't turn around. Okay,
And there's one pier, right?
There's one pier, and it's a one-way road. You do not turn around. You get run over, you turn around. So you go and knock on somebody's door. They give you an ability. And then you go and select a worker out of the 3 that match that the door you knocked on. They have a little rose, a colored little rose. And then you can go and select one of the buildings up at the top
You're right.
that matches that place.
Yeah.
Take back my skepticism.
This is a
What
good
was your
game.
skepticism
It's
about?
like it's a worker movement game. The car's moving around.
Oh, no, that's not the worker placement part.
You're
That's
right.
kind of
I
like a
forgot it was the
rondel.
other part.
Yeah.
You pay money to go farther on the rondel. You can not go to some place that is occupied, but you can pay for a place to become yours, and then when anybody else goes there, you get a little passive income.
I always love that.
I love that in games too, right? It's like, hey, you show up, I get a little something even when it's not my turn. It's a great way to get invested in some place.
Yeah, I agree.
And so a very simple game, really straightforward. The core of this game is, like I said, collecting things and shipping them. It kind of feels like a very simplified Puerto Rico in a way. But I really enjoy it. If I want to play a Euro game and I don't want to think that much, I'm tired, it's it's late night kind of game, this is a good one to get out and try because it's not going to be that demanding, that challenging, and yet it keeps me engaged. I love that feeling of that binary choice. How far do I want to go? And then which of the three, whatever locations, do I want to go to? Really like it. That's my number 9.
I don't want to startle you, but you are being called out for your Cuban knowledge. They are demanding that you address whether this game is actually set in Havana or Santiago de Cuba.
Oh, yeah, I did say that, didn't I? That's so funny. I don't know why I went Havana in one circle.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is. It's probably because Santiago de Cuba is another city. Havana just got reprinted.
Oh, yeah.
It had the same artwork
It did,
back in the day, and now they reprinted with all new artwork. I think it's in my mind.
It's like a Stefan Feld game. You can call it Amsterdam or you can call it Bruges.
Yeah.
It's the same city, right?
Right, exactly.
Basically. I don't know if that's
agree with
the
that
analogy.
Yeah, if they reprint this, you can betcha it's going to be called Egypt.
The city of Egypt.
My number 9 is a game where worker placement is part of the game, but it's a really interesting part of this very gigantic game, and this is The Great Wall. From Awaken Realms.
I still haven't played
I've
this
never
game.
played either.
I don't even know if I would recommend it
I
to
like the original better.
The Great Wall.
The Wall.
In this case, it's a game in which you're sending troops out to this wall, and you can build the wall higher. This is a very end game state you're seeing here. But the worker placement part is interesting because each of the worker placement spots, and this is on your left of the picture there, you are placing workers in those spots, and it doesn't actually activate till it's full.
Okay.
And I like that concept, but the more you have there, the better it goes off, but it might not fill up. In fact, sometimes it doesn't fill up over the round, and you kind of wasted your workers putting them there. And
they don't get anything for putting them there.
Or they
so
get
it's like
less.
a simplified Inori.
Sort of. Well, simplified.
Z, the thing is, though, you want them on that wall.
You need them on that wall? Huh.
Aren't you glad you had me back, Tom?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Where's that wall? Facing Cuba? Did we bring this full circle?
Oh, boy.
Santiago de Wall.
Anyhow, the Great Wall, and I mean, the other worker placement, I guess you can consider sending those troops out as worker placement. It's not really. It's more like area control. But I thought the worker placement of this was really interesting. And also, you're placing some really gorgeous miniatures. You have special powers that affect how you play stuff. So number 9, the Great Wall.
I don't want to know. So, hey, everybody. My number 8 is very new. Is it newer than Inori? I don't know. We'll have to see. But it's got to be close.
It can't be.
It's got to be close.
Because Inori was a Essen release. So this would either have to be an Essen release or a Kickstarter release very close to Essen, but before, technically, because I know you had it before Essen.
Oh, you know what the game is?
I'm guessing.
What is it?
Andromeda's Edge.
No, Wondrous Creatures, Tom.
That's what I said.
Wondrous Creatures. This is a brand new Kickstarter game from Bad Comet, who have just been consistently getting better and better with their releases. Life of the Amazonia was their last big release. And
you like this better than that? Would you say you like this better than that?
I'm getting there. I think I am getting there to this point.
Which one?
I think I'm liking this better than Life, but it's still so close. It's still so close.
I'll give this one the edge because this one finishes faster.
It is faster.
Really?
But what I like about this,
than the other one.
it's a little faster. What I like about the way this handles worker placement is in a couple of different ways. Number one, you've got your own little figure that has a special power. It's not huge, but I like that you put him on your little guy, and that's the guy that has a special power.
Right.
I like that. But what I really like is that you can see kind of the hex-based board here. And what you're doing is you're placing your creatures usually on those kind of tan-looking spaces. And the reason why you're doing that is because you are collecting resources, potentially some kind of little powers as well, that are adjacent to where you place your creatures. And you're also kind of building out the map throughout the course of the game so that you're adding potentially more resources and things.
And your creatures are 2 hexes.
And they're 2 hexes, although sometimes they're 3, depending upon what
my
power you
power,
might
baby.
have. So I just really like that element of the worker placement where there's a geographical kind of a spatial element to it, too.
This is good.
And that usually, I can't really think of a lot of worker placement games where the geometry of where you place your worker matters.
Yes.
And so I think that's really cool. Plus, there's great card play and everything else. But the worker placement for this is really satisfying and unique. That's why it's my number 8, Wondrous Creatures.
I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to disagree with anything anyone's saying
That's
today.
fantastic,
You're all doing
Tom.
such a good
It's
job.
all love.
Hang on to your butt. My number 8 is.
I wasn't setting you up.
But we'll see. We'll see if I get garbage for this, because I don't think so. You are selecting locations. Is when you are placing a worker. I think so. You are taking over a spot.
It sounds defensive.
Like you are locking a spot down where nobody else can go. You know what I mean? Anyway, this is Quadropolis. Okay? And in Quadropolis, there is a board in the center. I love Mike. There's a board in the center. You are putting one of those arrows, one of your, i.e. workers, pointing into the grid. And the number on the worker is how far into the grid you'll be selecting a tile from. Once you put a worker there, nobody else can put a worker there.
You notice how he's done this? He's changed it from arrows to workers now.
You see
I like
that
was
arrow-shaped
smooth.
worker.
That was
it's
smooth.
the same. Another game I could have put in this spot, actually, but I think this one's a little cleaner, is Meadow. Meadow does the same.
this, yes.
Right? It's the same kind of rules. Meadow actually uses the things, and then you can do a secondary sort of action with a secondary board. But I like the simplicity of this. This was the first one that did it, too, from as far as I know. This mechanism, this like sort of pointing into a grid.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. I can't select this tile from here because my 1 is gone. But if I point at it from this way, my 4 still is available, so I can get to it. And I like that puzzly nature. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this makes me wonder, how related do you think this is to those games where you've got maybe tiles set up and you put something in between 2 tiles or in the junction of 4 tiles?
Sure.
It feels kind of like an offshoot
area
of that.
control usually.
Maybe, but
If it's done for action selection, then yeah,
I think it's kind of a similar vibe to that, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And some games, I don't have anything like that on my list, I want to say, but yeah, that idea of sort of placing between 2 tiles and selecting 2, or even at the corner of 4 things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that kind of funkiness, that geometry. You were talking about geometry.
Yeah.
I like that this one has that geometry. And then the city building, which is what's coupled with the selection, is also very straightforward. I'm not a big fan of city building games generally. I think they tend to get in their own way. This scores off of this, but you don't want that.
Right.
And then the park cannot be next to the industry, but you do want it next to the hotel. I'm like, ugh, it's too much.
Yeah.
This one's fairly simple with that stuff.
Okay, so you explained this as worker placement, and after listening, I accept that. That sounds right. But I looked up the HOA rules of conduct, and it says no.
Are the arrows?
I would let it go.
Do you know if the
I owe a fee.
$50.
Yeah, there we go. Suddenly I owe a fee.
do you know if the arrows are coming later to mow the lawn, or is that
Yeah, right. Anyway,
arrows.
that is my number 8.
All right, let's get into some spoiler territory here, and I don't even care anymore. My number 8 is Charterstone. And Charterstone is a legacy game from Stonemaier Games, and I'm going to slightly spoil this briefly. It's not that big of a deal, but if that bothers you, skip ahead in the video. It's a worker placement game.
Whoa.
Wait a minute! Come on! Leave some mystery.
That's not the spoiler. The spoiler, you're collecting various things. One of the things you collect in this game is new kinds of workers.
That's true.
And there is, I think, 6 different types that you will eventually. You unlock one.
You definitely unbutton them.
Let me stop.
What?
Charterstone After Dark.
Down 2 levels. Anyway, no, but you unlock one like game 2.
Yeah, you
and
do.
and the one you unlock is almost random, basically on the things you do. And I like all the different things that they do. They're really fun. I'm not spoiling what they are, but they all have fun
I will.
actions.
Just
Why
wait.
don't you just go ahead? Spoil what they all do.
I will say though that I agree with you that that's my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, it's really neat to get
it
all
is.
those different workers, and I have it. If you want to see it, you can. We have a copy in Dice Tower Library. It might not be there long. That is a fully set up one, and all the different workers and stuff. And I just really like it.
I'll spoil it even more. You're adding worker placement spots to the map throughout the game too.
Were you in this playthrough with us? I don't think you were.
No, I did my own playthrough.
Solo.
No. It does play solo. No, I played it with 3. We played through the whole thing.
All right. Anyway, my number 8.
So I was talking about it.
Yeah,
we're back.
No more Charterstone talk.
Whoa.
Cut him off at the knees.
I apologize, Joey, for whatever
For
I
all
did.
these people at home, this is so jarring. I sense coffees and sodas being spilled all over the world. I don't know where that was going. My number 7.
Yeah, the assumption that we're being watched all over the world is
being watched
the
all over-
hubris.
and everyone has a beverage.
Yeah, and they're all
all
like,
startled.
oh!
Has this ever happened to you? Joey makes a terrible cut. No. My number 7 is a new game, too. Not as new as Wondrous Creatures, but it's another Kickstarter. Look, that's a big part of the market now. You can't avoid Kickstarters. I'm sorry, people.
No one's at
I'm
Kickstarter.
sorry,
I'm about
people.
to drop
Kickstarters
an
exist.
elbow on you.
This is called, I don't think you played it.
I saw it
Okay.
and I dismissed it.
Okay. That's fair. That is fair. This is called Atlas Lost, Rise of the New Sovereigns.
100% saw it.
Yes.
And dismissed it.
You should not dismiss
Wait,
it.
is this from that company that I'm afraid to play their games?
No.
No, it looks like it though, doesn't
This
it?
is from what's...
Yeah, it looks like that.
It looks like a stereo system again.
Oh, no, it's not from Orange Nebula. This is a Japanese...
I like Orange Nebula. Anyway.
This is a Japanese publisher called Tactical Games, and it's the same designer as Ostia and Aqua
Oh,
Garden.
here we go.
And,
Somebody has a type.
and it's Tech Trees. I'm telling you, I don't
why
know.
am I not playing this game?
I wanted
Is
to...
this in the Dice Tower Library even?
No. I backed it. I don't know why you
Did
didn't
you back it, Tom?
I don't know why you didn't back it.
Did you back it?
I don't know. Did we send this
Don't
one to
know
Brian
why.
by accident?
Don't know why.
I don't think I've ever seen this here.
I don't think I've ever seen it either.
I think I brought it to teach one night, and it didn't end up getting played. But anyway,
out.
Wow. He made this whole list just to get back.
No,
Remember
no.
the time no one played
I
my
brought it
game?
and nobody played it.
Number 7.
so this is a game where you can have you choose different kind of things that are going to be involved in the game. It may be a culture track, and it may be a religion track, or it might be a military or whatever. But based on that, you're going to be putting out these different tiles that are essentially tech trees that branch down. And you've got agents, which are your workers, that you're going to be sending to these spots, but you have to kind of follow. You have to have a link. You can't put someone right away on the 3rd level. You got to first, 2nd level, 3rd level, and they branch. So you kind of are picking which paths you're going down. And it's really, really clever. Plays relatively quickly for the type of game it is. And the worker placement is, again, it's an action selection, but you also can kind of do things, adjust your workers or add things on to them to give them different scoring opportunities.
Oh, interesting.
And so,
that's what Tom wants.
It's really, really good. It's, again,
What year did
a
this come
tiny
out in?
publisher. It was last year. Or this year. Sorry, this year it came out.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance.
right.
I will absolutely bring this to the next, convention or whatever. I'll be happy to teach it to you, although it's best if you get it and read the rule book and teach it to somebody else, because I think that's how you best interact with a game the first time.
Or people.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah. Bring some arrows along with you. They'll help you with the game. My number 7 is Atlas Lost, Rise of the New Sovereigns. And it's got a really cool cyberpunk theme,
I think
too.
Mike's getting a little edgy since he's moved up to the north. I'm
telling
telling
you.
he's come back with a bit of a bite.
Indiana brings out the thug in everybody. It
Yes,
is straight
that's their
thugging
tagline
up
of the
there
state.
in Indiana, right? It's basketball, it's corn, it's thugging.
I'm going back to Indiana.
My number 7, I once tried to teach at a game night, and let's just say I had to get some stitches at the end of the evening because nobody wanted to play with me. This is Lost Ruins of Arnak. Lost Ruins of Arnak is a little bit, and often does get that comparison to Dune Imperium. It's a bit like that because you are buying cards, sort of building up a deck of cards, and then using those things to place workers, to unlock new places in this one, to go farther into the jungle, to move up some exploration tracks on the side there, battle big monsters, all sorts of stuff. And I like that. Again, I'm realizing now as I'm talking through these things that I love when a worker placement game is coupled with another big mechanism.
Agree.
You know, when it's like when
Yes.
when it shares a spotlight with one other main mechanism. Worker placement, deck building. Worker placement, rondel. You know? And this one is, worker placement and deck building. And it is fantastic. I love the progression of the game. It can be a little bit long sometimes, but and a little heady too. It's certainly has a lot of sort of spinning plates a little bit. But I love that there's always 3 things I want to do in this game. It has that feeling of I want to buy that card, and then I can't, and somebody else buys it, and the card that comes up, I want that one even more than the last card. It has that feeling of, ooh, I want everything. I want to move up every track. I want to fight every monster, unlock every location. It's very engaging. It hooks you, and it keeps you sort of wanting to do everything. So I really enjoy it, and the worker placement is a big part of that. So for me, number 7, Lost Ruins of Arnak.
All right, my number 7, I'm surprised that no game from this company is yet to make Mike's list unless they're his top 4.
Oh, there's gonna be at least 2.
I think I know which one it is.
Who everybody knows who it
Which
is.
one? Okay, no, which game did I put on?
I think you put on Architects of the West Kingdom.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Architects of
Because he wants
the
30
West
workers.
Kingdom. It's not so. There's 2 aspects of this I like.
This was so
One
close
is-
to getting on my list.
One is putting the worker out and then putting another one out, and it just gets better every time. And
Yes.
the other is rounding everyone else's workers up and
Putting them
sending them to
jail.
jail.
Yeah.
But it's not one thing I really like about the game. It's really easy to get people out of jail. So it's a funny annoyance, but it's not. This never comes across as a tremendous take that. In fact, if I have 5 workers at a spot, I kind of am expecting someone to
you
send them to
have to.
jail.
Yes.
Or I'm sometimes even hoping so that I can get
Yes.
them back. It's a fun game that I think just has really done well. I think I struggled. This was my Garfield game for the list.
And it's the simplest of the 3 in the West Kingdom too. It's the most straightforward.
Yeah, well, it wasn't really going up against West Kingdom for worker placement
I see.
from the Garfield line. That's
I
all.
see what you're saying. Yes,
But-
yeah.
A solid game, Architects of the West Kingdom. Anyway, I want to.
It was good. It's always good when things are directed at Joey. Am I right?
Joey's still here.
He's still here. Yeah. He's
Hi, buddy.
He's getting ready to hit that transition button right now. My number 6 is a new game.
Is it? I know, right? Is it a Kickstarter or a GameFound game?
It is, but it also was available at Essen retail, and I
Okay.
think it's going to be available retail soon if it's not already.
Cult of the New.
Yeah, I know. My number 6 is Unconscious Minds. Mind. I know. I always catch myself.
Well, this is a
Unconscious
spoiler.
Mind.
We haven't even reviewed this yet.
Oh, but I have my score. You don't know it.
Is it on screen right now?
Maybe. So Unconscious Mind is another one of those games where it is very much a worker placement game, but there are other elements involved, right? And so
Yes.
that is driving kind of these branching actions that allow you to kind of engage in resource management and special powers and ultimately healing the patients, which is kind of the goal, but it's not necessarily even where you're going to get most of your points. So what I think is innovative about the worker placement element of this game is that looking at this picture, and I got to tell you, that is a beautiful composition. That is an amazing photo. Whoever took that has a very keen eye.
That was you, right?
Yeah, I definitely took that picture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just getting ready to talk about the picture.
Yeah, no kid. Let's move on to number 5.
I feel like we're being sabotaged. I just want to put it
I
out
thought
there.
he was complimenting the Vincent Dutray.
No.
artwork.
He's complimenting his own camera work.
My
We have
own
Vincent Dutray,
composition.
and we have two of the best artists in the business. And Mike's
Right.
like, but look at the
But
picture.
look at the photo. I'd love to look at the photo.
Well, you can't.
Joey, does he understand how to press the back arrow?
Yeah, move it.
Yeah, there you go. Do it
hit the
again.
hit the back worker.
Quick.
Good
So
man.
if you look at the little board right underneath the 6 there, that's the worker placement place, right? Where you've got these tiles that are arrayed and they're going to be different actions that you can take. You're going to be putting out these, they look like speech bubbles
yeah.
basically. And you could put one out there because you have a limited pool of those, right? That you can unlock more throughout the game. You could put one out there to take the action once, or you can double them up by putting another one on top of them. Now you've got fewer actions, but you've got a stronger single action, right? Which I think is cool. Or one of the resources in this game is probably called imagination.
Bright
innovation.
idea.
Bright idea. Okay, yeah. Have you played this?
No, I just made that up.
Okay, good.
Is he kidding me? Yes, of course, I've played it.
I don't
Am I
think
the
Zee's
only
played
person
it.
who
How
hasn't
would
played-
I have come
have
up
you
with
played
it?
this? Oh, good.
Yeah, I don't think Zee's played it.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Kidding. Yeah,
ahead.
Didn't we play a demo together?
No, that's
Oh,
insulting. Let's move on.
Anyway, the light bulbs
who
are
are
a
you?
way that you can add to the worker placement too without spending another one of your pieces.
All right.
Uh-huh.
You made it sound. I was already in the game.
That's
Yeah.
not the most interesting part of the worker placement. I'm surprised you're focusing on that.
What do you think is the most important?
The fact that it's 4 things, like that there's a grid and you play in between the actions. You put a speech bubble
Correct,
with the
and
tip
that's
of the
true.
speech bubble pointing at the thing you want.
Right, and
so
you
you
can't-
lock up a spot that could point at
That is
potentially
way more
4
interesting.
things.
Tell me about Mike's number 6.
no, but the thing is,
So much better than what he's saying.
that's a little player count dependent because you can point to the same action from 4 different spots.
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, yes,
But you lock
are-
up that spot.
You lock up that particular spot,
Sure.
which is correct. But yeah, I think that's interesting as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not as interesting about the stuff I talked about, but it's, ancillary. It's somewhat important.
Did you take this picture?
I drew the cover.
Oh, my.
In MS Paint, it's really a lot more powerful than people
I
realize.
know, it's true.
It really is.
yeah, when you take it, just slide it right off the internet. You're like, look what I did.
All right, my number 6 is a much, much smaller game than Unconscious Mind.
It just mind.
It is Fallout Shelter, the board game.
Oh, that's a good call.
Fallout
Ooh.
Shelter is this tiny
Good call.
little worker placement game. And the funkiness here is that you are growing the vault throughout the game. So more worker placement spots open up. And then baddies break into the vault and they cover up the worker
They
placement
can
spot.
try.
So they cover up the places where you can send every one of those little spots at the bottom, like the little circles or ovals at the bottom of the cards. That's places you can go as a worker. But sometimes these cute little transparencies take over the room, and so you'll have like a death claw with a transparent, background. It's a plastic card, and it goes into the room, and no one can take that spot anymore unless you go there and fight it. So the action changes to a confrontation action. If it's in your level of the vault, every player has one level, one depth, then you want that thing out of there so that you get a point at the end of the game. Every room that is not open at the end of the game that's being occupied by a baddie is going to cost you a victory point or whatever. So I really like it. It's really interesting. You want people coming to your rooms, so you will draft new locations and expand your underground area and put places where people want to go. You also want to keep them clear for yourself. It's very simple. It's like a pretty straightforward little worker placement game, and yet it is clever and engaging and very interesting. Great return here on the time investment, I would say. And if you like Fallout, whether you liked the little Fallout Shelter kind of app or not, it doesn't really matter. If you like the setting, if you like this sort of retro-futuristic 1950s look, I think you're going to enjoy the kind of tongue-in-cheek humor here.
Yeah, no,
I really like this one.
It's good.
Fun little game. Fallout Shelter, my number 6.
All right, let's go to one that's much more well-known here. My number 6 is Tuscany. Well, actually, it's Viticulture, but with the Tuscany.
Yeah.
Essential Edition. I finally have it figured out.
Yeah,
Just essential. Anyway, I love Viticulture's worker placement. I enjoy, but what makes this one stand out, Viticulture, amongst, say, Rosenberg's games, of which none made my list, as a heads up.
Wow.
Because again, I like Rosenberg's games a ton.
Right.
It's just the worker placement part. Even in Feast for Odin, which has 61 spaces, whatever. It's all about, for me, that game's about putting the grid and building it.
Yeah, the
in this one,
economic.
it's about the worker placement because there's 4 seasons, and in the first season, Mike's like, I pass. I'm like, yes, I'll just take all the spots. Ha 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 ha. Then we get to winter, and I have nothing.
Yep.
And then if you play with Tuscany, you can also play with special workers. You have spots where you can put workers in your own thing. This is really fun. It's a very interesting game, and I will probably only play it with Tuscany in the future because
And
I
this
like
new
that
map.
board.
You like
Especially
the
with
4-season
I like
board.
Yeah.
the 2 seasons is really interesting, but the 4 seasons it's twice as interesting.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's math.
Also, it's like a fantasy game with 4
Yes.
seasons. I haven't seen 4 seasons in a long time, Mike.
Yeah, I know.
Right now we're still in summer, but we're almost to spring.
And then back to summer.
Back to summer
Yeah.
again.
That's fair. Anyway. And that's what I think about that.
Right.
And that's all I
That
have
may
to
be
say
the
about
smartest thing
that.
you ever said, too. I really
Thank
wish they
you.
could have heard that. You mentioned earlier, Z, a game that was on
did.
your list that was called Lost Ruins of Arnak, and you compared it to a game that was on my list, which was Dune Imperium.
I did.
And at around, because those came out around the same time, and there was
That's-
another one. So there was like a trilogy of games that were
Yes.
really worker placement and deck building kind of intermingled. And mine is the third of those 3.
You know what it is?
I do.
It's Endless Winter Paleo Americans.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you're the sole champion of this.
I think this game is terrific. I really do. Now, I think that this one, the deck building, is the slightest of any of those 3 games, even.
This
I
is your-
think so.
This is
That's
your
true.
weakest one. Not because I think this is a bad game. It's a
Yeah.
fine game. But because the worker placement in this is the least, it's a minor part of it.
No, I disagree. I think that well, it
You have
drives
one of
other
6
parts of the
spots
game.
to go to, right?
But if you go earlier or later, it changes.
Right, and you have your chieftain who can do certain things that
He's
your regular
chunky.
that your regular workers cannot. But yeah, it's that idea that the worker placement spots that are up there towards the top, and if you're there first, basically you're doing the series of actions in order from top to bottom.
Right.
And the bottom one is a bonus action that only the person who places there first can do.
Right.
It's a small little thing, but it really feels important. You know, there are times when it's like, I know that this is probably the best action for me right now, efficiency-wise, but I really want to be the first one to get this.
Sure.
So you go there and you kind of adjust and pivot and try to make the best out of it. And so I really, really like the way that the worker placement aspect works in this. There's other stuff going on. There's set collection. There's deck building. There's little area control.
That's what I'm saying. There's so much other stuff going on.
Worker
The
placement
is
drives
one part of it.
It drives everything. It drives everything because it's an action selection
Yeah, I'm
system.
not arguing that it doesn't drive everything, but it doesn't make it that interesting.
Well, I disagree. I think it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I have a question for you, Mike.
Yes.
I was actually reading about this game recently, and one of the general complaints about the game seems to be that in the game you can achieve basically almost everything. Have you played with the adjusted rules that deal with that?
I have not.
Apparently in the newer printings of the game, there's some variants at the back of the rule book where you like have one fewer worker or something, and you begin with something different. And the idea is to make that less possible, to have that be less likely that you can make it all the way up to the top of the track with
Sure.
the totems, build every tile, like do it all.
Yeah,
And by
yeah.
the end, you're like, well, I did it all. I didn't
Yeah.
have to make hard choices because I did it in a different order, but I
got
got
everything
around
done.
to everything. I was wondered if you had heard of that.
I
or done
wouldn't
that.
do that because I don't think any of us are good enough for that to matter. I
think-
played
yeah,
the game and I haven't done everything.
That's true. Me too.
I mean, and that's clearly because I'm not good, and I know Mike's a lower quality player than I am.
Well,
even,
clearly.
and you're not even in our league.
Yeah.
But
He's been to Indiana recently. Gen Con. He's gotten that thuggin' coming down.
I don't know. He's about to he doesn't know how close he is to getting a shanking. You're about to catch a shank.
That's right.
We call it.
Catch a shank.
yeah, but I'll leave a murder note that was like, it was. Then it will just be.
Then the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting that you say that, Z, because I will look into that because basically, even in the game, there were two things that they put as like modules that it's like, no, that's got to be in the like the pass actually having an action where in the base game you just pass, and then they've got this little tile you stick there, and now pass means something. Why
Okay.
would you ever not play with that? So I feel like maybe that maybe they've addressed some things. I at least want to look at it. So.
Cool.
It is a good game. I don't want to take away from that.
My number 5 is the longest title on my list, second to one coming up later today, and this is Glenn Drover's Age of Empires 3, The Age of Discovery, American McGee edition.
The card game, the dice game.
I don't know which.
It's now called Empire's Age of Discovery.
I think it is now called that, but I've never played that edition. I've played this edition.
Yeah.
The big
They're not different enough that it would matter to
Tropical
you.
Games, which is a company that wasn't around for very
It was
long.
around for this game.
It was an enormous box. It is one of those games I wish I still had, and I also realize this is a giant box. I would have called this thing 6 times before, like after the first time I called it. You know what I mean? But anyway, the idea here is something that's going to show up on Tom's list, I'm sure, that all the workers, there's like 4 or 5 different types of workers, and they do different things based on where you send them. Like the priest, you send him out to the new world, he does different stuff than if it's the soldier or the merchant or whatever. So this is one of the early games that did this idea of a worker is a worker, not being true. Who you send out very much matters. It also introduced the idea that a ship is a wild worker, and that's bananas. I don't know.
No, bananas was one of the resources.
Yeah.
I don't know what possessed them to say, what's a wild worker? What could that be? I know. A whole ship.
A ship that's the same size as the
Actually, I
worker.
think a ship was a wild resource.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it's some kind of weird concept where you would get that whole really cool plastic ship, and it was like a wild something else that made no sense.
Someone wants to know if that ship was to scale. Yes, it's about 20 feet in the back.
Yeah, that's what
we
it is.
got to feed our workers. Let's give them ship. Hey boys, we're having ship tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
I've heard that's it. Oh, it was a different. Sorry, I'm getting my letters mixed up again.
Oh boy.
All right. My number 5 is a new game that I've been guessing on Joey's list for a while now, and that is Andromeda's Edge.
Oh,
Okay.
So
you've been guessing
Andromeda's
it
Edge.
on Joey's list?
Did I say Joey?
Oh, you said Joey.
I'm used to him sitting here
Joey,
now.
we have
He is-
we need to have a talk after this.
I wasn't wrong. Yeah, Joey's taking your spot. Mike. Anyway, Andromeda's Edge looks like a big space epic game.
Yeah.
And there's some epic parts to it, but it is a worker placement game where you are placing the workers out, but this does something that other worker placement games do, which is you also pull them off the board, which I love. But when you pull them off the board, this copies its predecessor, Dwellings of Eldervale, and you place them on spots on your board. So you're placing them whether you pull or put them. And when you pull them, the spots you put them on are so much better.
Yeah.
And they just get better and better and better and better to the point where after a while I'm like, I put a ship out. I'm ready to pull back right now.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
so-
yeah.
So good.
Gotcha.
This game just really scales and amps up. You're buying those little, in that picture, there was all those modules. You're buying modules, and you're basically buying worker placement spaces for yourself. And then the game itself has worker placements. You can upgrade worker placement spots, which is not done in many games either.
Yeah,
that
it's
whole idea
not.
of putting a moon on a spot.
I
And
love
you
that.
go there and get the extra stuff. Oh, man. Any
Yeah.
game that lets you have this kind of wide range. So it's very, very fun. It's one of my favorite games this year, Andromeda's Edge. I really like it. Also,
I keep waiting for that to get old. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. I still get a kick out of that. My number 4 is our first crossover. That's bananas. My number 4 is Viticulture plus Tuscany.
Oh, it's not even a crossover with me?
Essential
No,
edition.
there's no Tuscany
No,
there.
but here's what I did.
Crap.
Let's go to the picture, Joey. There's Tuscany. Yes, baby.
I've been snookered. I've been wine and dine.
I just set you up. I just threw out the leg. Gotcha.
You fished him.
I fished him right out.
Did you have some of that Cuban coffee?
I didn't. You'd think
If
so.
you had, you would be getting shanked right now.
That is correct. That is correct. You mentioned, I don't need to belabor, you've mentioned much of the things. The seasonal element of it is, I think, what makes it stand out. There was one little innovation, too, which has now become kind of a thing of that Grande Worker, which was an innovation kind of built out of necessity, right?
Yes, yes.
But sometimes that's how these things
Well, innovation is the grandfather of necessity. Or they're related.
They're related in some
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
I think it's stepdad. Now, do you play with the module that gives you the different kinds of workers, like 1 or 2?
I usually do, not with new players.
No, but it's really fun, I think.
It's really fun, yeah.
Well, they put the mamas and the papas like in the base game
That's
now,
in
right?
base
There used to be a
viticulture now.
Tuscany thing.
Right. No, that's in there, and there's...
What about cheese?
No, they kept the cheese out.
Cheese is out, man.
No fromage. And
What
they kept
about
out,
the moo cows? They're out.
the moo cows are out, I think. Yeah.
That was
No, they're
also-
still.
That was in the cheese one.
Is it?
The cows
There
and
was
the
cows,
cheese
there
go.
was spaghetti. There was all kinds of...
Yeah, it was like It
If
was,
it's food, get it out. This is just
Yeah.
about drinking.
yeah, it had the Olive
Got it.
Garden module in there, and they took that out.
Yes.
They just took that
Endless
right out.
bread.
Breadsticks. I'm back in, baby.
Endless bread is actually the re-theme of Endless Winter.
It is.
And that's coming next year to
I'm
SM.
going to the endless ship spot. Have you had the ship at Olive Garden?
It's
It
a
is
little-
a little overrated, honestly.
Yeah, it's a little
it's not
wooden.
very authentic. My number 4, viticulture.
Okay. My number 4. I wonder if I'm going to get garbage for this one, too. We'll see.
We haven't done it yet.
This
There's
is...
so many worker placement games. You didn't have to stretch for this list.
No, I was hoping for some that I thought were genuinely different
Unique.
from the...
Yeah.
Yeah, something interesting. There's a ton of worker placement games, and worker placement is starting to get to the point that I put deck building in, which is path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to distribute these actions. Worker placement.
Yeah.
I don't know how to move this game forward. It's a deck building game. But the themes, shut up. Deck building game.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Anyway, this is Istanbul.
It's a worker movement game.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, in this...
It's a different category.
In this game, you have a stack of tokens. They represent you, basically. And you can move, so the geometry here very much matters, and it is random if you want it to be. You're going to move your stack several steps away, and then you leave a token from your stack of tokens there to take that action. That is your worker. You are going there. That's the worker action you're doing. If you go back to somewhere you've been, you'll instead pick up that worker. So it's this placement and taking off the board idea as well. The thing that finally, I was sort of going back and forth, the reason I decided to go ahead and say, yeah, this counts as workers, is because if somebody goes where you currently are, they have to pay you for that. Otherwise, it's just an action selection. It does not matter if I'm there or not. You see what I'm saying? And that's
Okay.
kind of the thing I'm saying about worker placement is that worker placement is slightly different from action
Right.
selection because presence, you going where I already chose to go, matters.
Okay, because I was going to ask you if then you felt, and it wasn't like a gotcha, it was a legitimate question.
Yeah.
I was going to say, then do you think Five Tribes is a worker placement game, but it wouldn't fulfill that?
Correct, because it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Number 3.
No, I don't feel. It doesn't feel like a worker placement. You are
Right.
moving stuff around.
yeah.
And in this one, I am selecting an action with my worker. Sometimes you do tricky stuff. Instead of leaving a worker, you pick one up. Or at some point, you have to recall your workers. You have to go back to the fountain and gather up your strength again. But it feels like a worker placement with a geometry layer on top of that.
Yeah.
I want to go over there and buy a gem, but I can't physically get there in
Right.
one turn. I gotta make another stop on the way. I can also sequence things so that you do not have to take a reset turn, which is amazing. I love that idea.
Yeah.
You can path it out so that you're not resetting. You're dropping people off and picking them back up and taking the action for free.
Breaking the game.
Breaking the game is possible in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this.
It's a superb game. It's incredibly clever. I also love that this game doesn't have any scoring at the end. Once you get a certain number of gems,
It's a race.
You win.
I do like race. I mean, it's essentially the same thing as points.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, sure. 8
First to get
points,
'em.
7 points, whatever.
Sure.
I really like that. So my number 4, Istanbul.
one thing I like about workers is when they're used for different things. And in this game, I like the workers because you have different workers with different numbers, but they also have different sides, and where you place them matters a lot. This is Federation. So in this game, when you place your worker, you're placing it on an action on the grid there. You can see a bunch of workers placed out. And the action matters, but also the column you put it in matters. Based on what the side you put it on. It might move the track. And then at the end, the row matters because you're voting in that row. And then the side matters for the
just
scoring.
set that one.
No,
The
I said
side of the
column.
chip.
No, there's a side of the chip. There's the left or right side of the chamber.
Okay. You mean like the front or the back of the chip
Yes.
you're putting out. Got it.
There's the row and the column. That's a lot of stuff to think about, and I like it. I think it's very interesting. I mean, fortunately, this is the most complex part of the game because the rest of the game all around it is mostly moving up tracks.
Yeah.
I go to the
Totally
spot, I move up the track here. I go to the spot, there's some that give you special abilities, but it's pretty simplistic. But this adds a layer of complexity to it, and I really enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. I hadn't considered this one, but yeah, it definitely does something different with worker placement for sure.
And if you go somewhere, no one else can go to that spot, right?
Yes. And one of my favorite things about this game, there is 2 of each action, but yes, if they're both covered, there's also a spot where you can pay to do any action, whatever.
Cool.
My favorite thing about this game is the upgrade chips, and one of them, you get a more powerful worker than everybody else, but you have to really work to get that, and by the time you get it, the game's almost over.
Right.
But don't care. I still try every
That's
time.
cool. That's cool.
Federation.
Nice.
And
Oh, woo, 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 woo.
Woo. My number 3 is another one of those games that Tom mentions, like I seem to be really the only person that champions it, but that's okay. This one, I think what is so unique about the worker placement in Outlive is this idea of intimidation. It's this kind of this threat of physical violence. If there's one thing that's missing from most worker placement games, it's the
It's a
imminent
bat.
threat of physical violence.
I like that. I like that.
Right? So the idea is you've got these workers and they have values written right on them from I think 1 to 5, and they are going to be they kind of start on a spot, and then you move them to a different spot. You can't obviously go back to the spot that you were, but you have to kind of think about, because you have multiple workers on the board, and you can't have 2 of your workers in the same spot, so you might move one to move a different worker into the spot that they were in.
Sure.
But you also have to account for the strength of the figures that are already there. So if there's another player in that spot and they have a higher number than you, they basically are going to take your stuff unless you spend bullets, basically shoot at them to keep them from stealing your
Get
stuff.
down!
Right.
I want my tin of unedible food.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
You are fighting over some pretty bad
You're
food.
fighing over some terrible stuff, because this is really essentially
Post-apocalyptic.
Fallout Shelter.
Yeah,
it is
basically.
literally Fallout Shelter, the game, much like yours, just without the name. So the idea of not only does it influence where you might be able to go, because you have to have that ammunition as a resource to be able to go to spots where other players are.
Right.
But there is also a particular spot, a very powerful spot on the board, that the strength of the worker you send there is going to influence how good of the action
like
you
that.
get.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot too. So it's like, do I save my number 5 worker to go to the ship and get the best stuff, or do I keep him on the board because no one can intimidate him.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So really, really interesting game, and definitely feels different and unique in worker placements.
Let me give you all a
Outlive.
tip, by the way. If you're hunting this game down on the secondary
Don't
market.
get the deluxe.
Okay, I was going to give the tip. Mike's just going to do it. Fine.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were like
That's what I was going to say.
specifically. Yeah. Oh, I'm
Don't
sorry.
get the deluxe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very rarely do I say that,
Right.
but in this case, actually in this company's case, it's almost the better option.
Yeah.
So what if I'm looking for the game, right, and I want to get the deluxe version?
Oh, here,
I
tell you.
got this. I got
Okay.
this. Don't get it.
Don't get it. Here's what I did. I've got a Frankenstein version where I have the retail edition of the game,
Yeah.
right, which has the better wooden, easily readable number workers. But I did get directly from the company, the publisher, I got the dual layer player boards.
You're right. That's
I like.
good.
And so you don't, I mean,
You have-
they'll
you have
ship them
3D
right
bullets?
to you. I don't think I got any
No,
of that
I'm
stuff.
I don't think they sold those with this expansion. I'm hunting those. I'm hunting 3D bullets out
Yeah.
for this game.
I do have the pretty
You know
hard to
what's-
find expansion.
You know what else could be considered 3D bullets?
What's that? Bullets?
Bullets.
If this game came with a bunch of bullets in, that'd be an interesting explanation to the
Just
customs
saying.
officials.
You
when we went up to
you could also just have loaded weapons at the table to reenact the intimidation factor. But
I
I
don't
think
do that, but I do leave a bat at each table at Dice Tower conventions and see what happens.
yeah, it'll
inflatable, to be fair.
It'll be like the Untouchables. You know, you just walk behind people with your bat, and no one knows who's going to get the crushing blow.
Wow.
Why has this gotten so violent? I have no
Jeez.
idea.
Okay, let's
This
move
is
on.
Calm down, Joey.
Let's
Relax.
move on to
Yikes.
a
There's a guy
friendly,
standing right there making us do
friendly
this.
game. My number 3 is Targi.
I knew this would be on your
Oh,
list.
Of
yes.
course, it's on the list. It's a great worker placement game for 2 people only. It has. I'll keep it brief here because I think my next one is actually very similar. But Targi, the idea here is you put a worker. There's a grid of cards, action selection on the outside. You put a worker, 3 workers out, back and forth with your opponent. Once you go to a place your opponent cannot go there, obviously they also cannot go across from you on the grid. And after you're done putting out all 3 of the workers, where they intercept, which would be 2 locations, you also get that action. That's it. And it's great. And the actions are so
Super great.
interesting. The stuff you're collecting from the middle, you turn around and spend it to build cards. Honestly, that part's kind of basic.
Yeah.
The cards you build out in front of you is just for points and a couple of special abilities. It's the worker placement that's incredibly clever.
Yeah.
That's where the game is at. And except for my next one, like I said, I haven't seen anything else that does something similar that I find as engaging. So there you go. My number 3, Targi.
All right, my number 3 is a crossover, but it's no longer with Mike. I'm now crossing over with Z.
Let's go. Glenn Drover's Age of Empires 3, The Age of Discovery.
It's just called Empire's Age of Discovery.
Not in my book, it's not.
Oh, wow.
I'm using the new modern box with the wild research.
That looks
see
so
see the
modern.
Fryer? See the Fryer? He's currently eating that ship.
Is he standing
You
on
see
a
he's
cocoa
gnawing on
space
it?
still? Yeah, he is. He's chewing on the ship.
He's hungry.
He's well fed.
Anyway, so Z mentioned one of the reasons I like it, which is the different workers, which is really cool. The other reason I like it is the workers then become area control, which I think is a nifty thing. You're sending workers off to America. You can send any worker you want. Some of them count as 2 when they're over there. Some count as missionaries, and they get you extra resources or something or other. Although they can, I forget what they all do. It's been a bit.
So what makes this different than just straight area control where you send? Is it because they're also taking actions when
Yes.
they go out? They're not
So
just going out there to be an influence.
Well, some are, but a lot of
Okay.
them, they take actions.
Okay.
Some of them will never go to the new world. They're doing
Okay.
other things. Some you go
Yeah.
off and you explore India and other spots, that,
Yeah.
and they may or may not survive those encounters.
Yeah.
And I just like that. There's a lot. It's a really cool game. This is one thing they fixed definitely in the new version was the board is you're using all of it as opposed to the original game.
That's right.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of the board that wasn't used. And they also, in the new version, slightly nerfed the ship strategy because if you got a bunch of ships, not only were they wild resources, but there was also a card at the end that gave you like 7 points per ship, and you would win if you got that. They nerfed
Big
it.
ship strategy, they called it.
Yeah.
Big ship.
It was full of ship. The
I love that this is the new version, by the way.
This is the looker of the 2.
Well, this is also like 10 years old too.
That's fair.
But they didn't nerf it as much by making it worse, but just by making other things good.
Yes.
And also not knowing that certain tiles would come out, I thought made the game better. Anyway, this is a fantastic game, Empire's Age of Discovery.
I would be happy to have a new edition of this. I know they've reworked it like 4 times.
Yeah.
There's the original I put on, this, a sci-fi one, some other one. They have made this a few times. I would love for there to be.
It's not good.
I've heard that. I never played that one, but I'd be happy with a new edition of this. Just cut and dry, brand new, looking better than this.
A Kickstarter version.
Yeah, something that looks good and modernizes all these sort of, dangling prepositions.
You know what the spaceships are in the space version?
Tell me.
Ships.
Wild resources.
Dang.
Okay, that's actually not true. Let me give you some background history.
Here we go.
All right, Tom. Well, I told you that Architects of the West Kingdom almost made my list because I had a really hard time choosing between that and Paladins of the West Kingdom.
I thought you would put actually 4 Garfield games on your list.
Well, the thing is, they're really known for kind of innovating on worker placement. I mean, Raiders of the North Sea was kind of the first where they really tried to do something different. And both Paladins and Architects fit that bill too. In Paladins, it's what you've been talking about several times, the idea that the different color workers do different things and can go to different places, and that they're also tied in with the different tracks that you have to kind of balance in this game to kind of push forward.
Is this your picture?
No, this is probably
because this
Chris.
is like in a dungeon.
I think this looks like Chris's tablecloth thing. So I think maybe Chris took this one.
Whew. There's a lot of squares. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little hard to see on there, but that's all right. Look, I didn't take the picture. If I had taken the picture,
if you had, we would have heard about it.
No.
We wouldn't have talked about the game. We would have talked about the picture composition.
I don't want to get caught up in how the composition on this is way off. But anyway, no, the worker placement, I think, is unique, just like the other games, in this line. This is the most complex of the 3. But like everything else, it handles worker placement in an exceptionally clever way. And every turn feels impactful, right? Like you can't waste a turn in this game. You can't waste one placement of your worker because you'll feel really behind the 8 ball. So this is my favorite, although I easily could have gone with Architects too. It's also really, really clever.
All right, my number 2 is the second newest game on my list after Inori, and it does something which reminds me a little bit of the mechanism in Targi. This is Nova Roma.
Oh, good pick.
Nova Roma has that grid at the bottom. Let's see if you can spot it. It's kind of in the center of that board. You randomize actions around the grid. Mm-hmm. You put out Caesar on a kind of random square, one of 2 random squares. And then you put workers on the it's kind of like Targi inside out, reversible Targi, I call it. You put a worker on the inside of the grid, and the column and row that it's on, that's the actions you get.
Right.
But it's enhanced, the strength is enhanced by how many of your guys are in that column or that row, plus Caesar is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really like that.
Yeah.
I can, the very first worker you put, you'll get a strength 1 whatever this way, and then if you're next to Caesar on the same row as Caesar, then you got a strength 2 of whatever's this way. And everybody's jumping in there, so they're taking away spots, possibilities. Ideally, you're growing in strength because you're going on the same rows and columns as your own pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like this system. It is so clever. It's very mechanical. I mean, it is incredibly Euro, but it's so engaging as well. And I love that sort of I got this little mini game I want to manipulate and mess with and try to solve. It's like I'm messing with a Rubik's Cube in the middle of all this Euro style stuff.
Yeah.
So really like this one. Lovely game. Number 2, Nova Roma.
Normally, I say the opposite, so I got to give credit to where credit is due. but the new Queen version of this looks good.
It looks
Usually
really
their
good.
reimplementations of games look worse, but this one does not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the original was by the Designers Publishing Company, Half a Kingdom, and then that was picked up by 25th Century.
That's right.
Just know, honestly, there's no bad version of the game.
That's fair.
No, yeah,
they're
no,
all
but
good.
that's
They're
fair.
all good.
They
Very
are
good.
all good, but so either one you get is going to be good, but you don't have to worry about the Queen one.
Queen
It's
has
actually quite good.
That's renamed as Cindy.
Yep.
All right. My number 2 is not a looker, okay? Some of my games have not been lookers.
Unlike your number 3.
I know. Well, I'm not arguing that. But I love the worker placement is because you build the spots where your workers go. And that is Whistle Mountain. A fantastic game.
I hadn't thought of this.
In which you have 3 workers, a hot air balloon, a blimp, and a dirigible. And each one is 1, 2, or 3
Wait, a
spaces.
blimp is a dirigible.
You know,
what?
shop.
Shaw shop?
Shawshank. No.
What
one
are
is the
these
little one,
things?
the blimp, the
Which one is the Lunchable?
Anyhow, you are building all these different spots to place these ships, and everything that they're next to are all the resources you get. And then once
Okay.
you start putting out these, like that red blimp there is going to get 2 points. It's next to a 2 point tile, another point, and a water droplet for being on that, and then it gets something else from the other tiles, and it's really cool that
Like
way.
wondrous blimps.
I was just getting ready to say that, yeah, this does something similar to the Wondrous Creatures. I couldn't think of one that did, and this does something similar.
This does it. So this has more of an Wondrous Creatures has a lot of cool card stuff. This
Yeah.
is basically the whole game
Right,
here.
yeah, I agree.
Okay.
This lets it. You make really unique, interesting things, and you can make it so that only the small one
Right.
fits in a spot, but it's a really good spot, or what have you. I think it's a lot of fun. I think this game does not get a lot of buzz because it's called Whistle Mountain, and the only reason it's called that is because they were trying to make some sort of franchise of whistle games.
Yeah.
And whistles are wild resources in this.
Like shit.
Sort of
How
like
have they?
shit.
Michael! How have they not
You got
made
got.
a game called Whistle Wolf yet? Explain that to me.
Whistle Wolf?
This is
Ted
from.
Osbach might be listening.
This is from the Werewolf
Right,
Company.
it's from Bezier.
Where whistle?
Where Whistle works,
No, Wolf Whistle, yeah.
and it's about
You're canceled.
Wolf Whistle would be like a very different game. Everyone's a seer.
Oh.
I'm being censored on my own show.
I know. Look, he's hot on the button over there. His finger's just hovering. You can see him
Seems
just
like
shaking.
a nice, jolly guy, but
And
you get
he
that,
did.
he becomes.
He did have the Cuban coffee. I just want to point that out. My number 1 is going to be it's going to be saying a little something, maybe more than
Oh,
it
we already
should.
know what your number 1 is.
It's Andromeda's Edge. Okay.
What?
Now you're going to be like, oh, does this take the place of Dwellings of Eldervale?
Does this take the place of Dwellings of Eldervale, Mike?
For the
Well, is that on the
purposes
list?
of lists, yes, it does. What I'm saying is,
He's a lawyer.
no. What I'm saying is this. I'll just put it out there now. This and Dwellings of Eldervale will not both be in my top 100. One of them's going in because they are essentially the same game. There are some differences for sure, but the DNA is so closely related that I don't personally feel like they should both be in my top 100. Anyway, that being said, this is a fantastic game. Tom already talked about it. This is all about the recall action.
so
It
good.
really is. Because the worker placement spots are cool, right? They let you do neat things, and I love that you can turn your workers' ships into these buildings that are going to, give you points depending upon where you are on tracks and things along those lines. But it's really about building out those spots. Because you talk about building worker placement spots, you're essentially doing the same thing here.
I love it.
You're building out those modules that when you bring the ships back, you can trigger them in any order you want.
Okay.
And if you chain them with those moons, you're getting these just really great, satisfying turns. Normally, the weakest, most boring turn you take in a worker placement game is the recall. And it's the exact opposite here. Like you said, sometimes you want to rush the recall even if you
Okay.
know it's not the right idea, because it's so satisfying. So, yeah, Andromeda's Edge, it's just...
Yeah, this is one game where getting a lot of workers is not necessarily. I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, Mike has all his ships."
No,
Well,
yeah.
that's
I'll never
interesting.
win
That's
now.
interesting because that's
Right.
like such a strategy in almost every worker placement
Right.
game that gives you workers.
Right.
And I like that. Yeah.
No, they tie, and the other smart thing is that they tie all the buildings to those most basic ships that everyone has, basically.
Okay.
Because you don't have to really worry about...
If you remember when you played Dwellings of Everybody,
don't.
you had. Well, you might remember there's a meeple and you put like a hat on them and it
I
became
do.
a house.
I do remember
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So in this one, your ships, those big plastic pieces fit right on them,
Yeah.
and it becomes a building, and it looks. Then you stick these leader pieces in, and somehow they enhance how the building looks.
really
It's
does.
great engineering.
Question: is this more complicated than Dwellings?
I think it's less complicated than Dwellings.
I would say the same, but I mean, I think it's easier to teach.
I think the scoring
Longer
is
setup, easier to
less.
teach.
Yeah, the scoring is less obtuse in this.
That is 100%.
That's
true.
the biggest difference.
So this is not Dwellings fattened up. This
No.
is Dwellings streamlined a little bit.
I personally think it makes more intuitive sense than Dwellings do.
Okay.
Because I always have
haven't played.
Right.
But it being more intuitive, a little lighter maybe, and sci-fi on top of
Yeah.
that, and much more excited than Dwellings.
It just is so much easier for me to teach this than it was for me to teach Dwellings because, yeah, the scoring is more straightforward.
Okay.
Mike said setup took an hour the first time. Yes, but
Yes.
I know how to set it up. now.
Right, it goes
I can do it in
quicker.
20 minutes.
Okay, well, there's a whole lot of Luke Laurie all over this list because my number one is also one of his co-designs.
Oh, I know what it
did.
is.
He also did Whistle Mountain.
I know. That's why I'm saying there's a whole lot of Luke Laurie
Wait,
all
what's-
over this
Oh,
list.
I know
What
which
else
one
is-
it is. It's a good one.
You're right. Nova Roma was also his too.
No, that was
No,
Stan
that's
Kordonski.
Stan
Oh, I'm
Kordonski.
mixing
Yeah.
the two of them. They're both good.
My number one is the Manhattan Project Energy Empire.
Yeah, this is.
Hey, you know
another
it's being reprinted.
I
soon.
know. I'm very excited for
Yep.
that. This one gives you a little bit of a feeling of Requiem of the South. What's it called?
Requiem?
Requiem for a Dream.
No, the North Tigris, South
Which game are you talking about?
Houston.
How does
the
it
one
give
he
you
put
this-
on the list?
Oh, Architects of the West
That's
Kingdom.
the one. Yeah, Architects of the West Kingdom, where you have like 30 workers. This has a little bit of that feeling, where you have a bunch of workers. You don't really have a bunch of workers. It's workers and energy, and that energy kind of behaves like workers, right? The other, so there's a handful of stuff you have access to on your turn. You're putting out workers on the main board. You also have your own personal board, and you'll be enhancing that and fattening that up. You take one worker action on the central board, but then you can do as much as you want to on your own board. So you're doing all this stuff. You're triggering all sorts of things.
It's kind of like the recall action in a way.
Well, the recall in this is also pretty fun because
Yeah.
there is a recall action in this in which you get all your workers back. If you had any leftover energy, that's gone. But then you get to roll new energy.
Yeah.
And based on what types of energies you've invested in, that's going to give you a different return. You can go into clean energy. It's lower energy generally, but you don't have to deal with pollution on your little board.
Yeah, low
You can-
risk, low reward.
Right,
basically.
and then
Yeah.
there's others. You can go nuclear with amazing rewards, but you don't, it's quite a wide variance. It's just clever. It's just really interesting. And I love being able to, we do a little fighting out here for the locations, but then I've got this you can't mess with. I love it. I can do all these. Ooh, I want that card. Boom. Now I do more stuff over here. It just feels really good. If you're somebody who likes who shies away a little bit from worker placement because you don't want that head-to-head fight, this lets you have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Because you can do your own thing. So I really like it. I think it's a fantastic game. My number one, Manhattan Project, Energy Empire.
A quick question for probably both of you.
Yes.
I don't believe I've ever played a Tom Jolly game, right? So when I've played this, I think, okay, well, this feels like Luke Laurie to me. Like I can kind of tell what I think are the parts that he did.
Tom Jolly is the person who did like the
Cave
really
Troll and the old stuff
yeah,
like
the
that,
really
right?
light. Isn't he the co-designer also of one of those FFG games? I know Cave Troll's from them, but
Kings and Things.
like one of the really like flip a card, oh you died games.
Right. That's why I was going to ask you too. Like, are there any elements of this that you can be like, oh, that part must have come from?
I wouldn't know. I think I
No,
wouldn't know.
nothing.
Wow.
I don't recognize Tom Jolly at all in this.
Okay, that's interesting.
But maybe he came up with the original idea.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, my number one is almost a crossover for Mike, except for his old fogey-ish ways. And this is Dune Imperium Uprising.
That's all
because you
good.
got to have the sandworms.
I kind of want the sandworms.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We used to talk about, hey, it's a worker placement deck building game. The more I play this, the more the deck building, it's there and it's useful, but that worker placement is so important. Mm-hmm. And you sit there, and I like this because your workers are all the same, but it's the card combined with the worker that makes that worker feel like a unique worker. Like I put my worker here, he does this, and also this.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And that's a good combo. So every card lets you put a worker maybe in one place, two places, or every place. And I just find it to be really good. This game is very high. I think it's in the top 10 on Board Game Geek at this point. Maybe not this one, but the Dune Imperium. And, they really, BG needs to really combine their places for some of these top games.
Confusing for sure.
But I just think it's fantastic. It's very thematic. It comes down to the wire. It was just the finale of the World Series of Board Gaming, and it has that. It's really interesting. Every game's going to be different. Lots of fun, and I also don't mind the original. I'd play either one.
Sure.
So, although I put down so much money, they're going to phase out the original.
I would think so.
It already feels that way.
Yeah.
World Series is replacing it with this one next year.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know what else I can say. Anyway, Dune Imperium Uprising is my number one.
All
right, folks.
Don't cut us off, Joey. We still have stuff to say.
Nope, you're good.
So that is it for our worker placement games. What's your favorite worker placement game? Let us know in the comments. This is a huge category.
Yes.
I could have done a top 100 probably. There's so many games.
And a lot of people mentioned Uwe Rosenberg, who is clearly known as one of the titans in worker placement.
He has a lot. He uses that mechanism a lot.
Right, and you could easily do a top 10 Uwe games. You probably have at one point. But, I think we were going for something where it was a little bit straying outside of the norm. And Uwe's got a pretty...
But we also really listed great games.
I think
we're not
so.
like listing just games that are I didn't do that. Like actually, I just we could have picked weird esoteric games. We picked really big games.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think of Le Havre, I don't think of a worker placement game.
Right.
I think of a lot of other things to it.
Sure.
So, anyhow, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning for the Knizia Bitewing DiLisio-thon.
I am already
I
tingling
hope he
with
brings that
excitement.
plushie Knizia to join us.
You shouldn't even have said it. Now I'm going to be disappointed if it's not here.
How about a real Knizia?
Did you bring your picture?
No, I didn't bring the
Well,
shot.
then,
I didn't
but I
want
thought
to
you
creep
traveled
people
with
out.
I thought you had to.
Oh. TSA, I don't know. I didn't want to get any questions from TSA.
That's fair.
All righty, folks. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And I'm Mike DiLisio.
Have fun. Let me tell you one more thing here.
Okay.
Okay. Hey folks, thanks for watching another one of our videos. If you like our videos, if you like our channel, you would love to game with us at one of our conventions. Check out Dice Tower Cruise, Dice Tower East, and Dice Tower West. Fantastic conventions where we play games with wonderful people, a humongous library, and lots of other events and stuff. Also, don't forget to check out our channel, like and subscribe. I'm Tom Vasel.